who are most easily scapegoated, whose power is most easily taken away, and to also understand that if you're lucky enough to be, like, frankly, like I am in many ways, just far enough outside of those marginalized categories, but not that far, that they come for you, right? Like, that's how this works. There's all kinds of institutions in the U.S. that are doing their best. That, we can acquiesce just a little, like we can be a little complicit, and then the bad fascist man will pass us over, and it will be okay. If we just give a few hundreds of millions of dollars to Donald Trump, they won't come after my university anymore. And that way we get to preserve the institutions. And it doesn't stop until there's something that stops it. And it doesn't stop until there's something that stops it. And this pretending that, like, this feels kind of bad, sort of, kind of, but, like, I'm going to basically go, about my day. About my day. It always gets harder to resist. Every single time. Every soccer bowl will get them. Like, the people who are behind, who are not just complicit, but the architects of it, the Stephen Millers of the world, the Steve Bannons of the world, these people are going to outlive Trump. And their brand of politics is going to outlive Trump. And the only way to beat this kind of fascist takeover is to meet it head on. And when he comes from the museums, there should be people out there defending the museums. And same thing for any other institution or group of people who are under attack. Because otherwise, terrible, terrible things not only will happen, but will continue to happen, which is what we've been seeing over and over again. So I really hope that well-meaning people who want something better than what he's offering wake up and recognize what this looks like, and that if you were to pick a leader, you would describe this as being Duterte-esque, or, a la Mussolini, or, like, take your pick. There's different elements that meet different standards, right? The good news is that he's not actively engaged in, like, mass murder, or, there isn't a mass sending of people into laws, although, he's building up towards it. But this slippery slope that we're on, like, you have to push back, or we know where this ends up. And I'm getting very fed up with the Pollyannas and the people who want to maintain some kind of mainstream centrist. It's all going to be out of this country in living memory, and that we need to look further afield to understand what's happening. Thanks.
I think those are very wise words. Liberals versus conservatives. And sometimes we are so engrossed in our habitual approach to what's going on that we fail to recognize this. Thank you. Scott?
All right, can you come back to me?
Absolutely. Double.
Yeah, I'm to come back to me too. Sorry, I can't talk right now.
No worries, hurricane.
About moving slavery references from the Smithsonian references, I can't help but conclude that it is one of the administration's latest examples of anti-black authoritarianism. It's not just authoritarian, it is anti-black and authoritarian, because the institution of slavery in this country affected one group, black people. And the move to remove slavery references is read together with the attack, the administration's attack against race-conscious affirmative action in higher education admissions. I can't help but just conclude that the administration is in tell you that his claims about the museum not recognizing the progress that America has made is categorically false. I will tell you briefly about the museum. I'm looking at the map right now. There are 5 floors with exhibits. The lowest floor is called Slavery and Freedom, and it covers the period 1400 to 1877. rights were subjected to racial terrorism, but it's very clear that black people bore the brunt of that. But even that floor points to the future because it does show
United States of America, we the people
racial segregation
of the United States.
end under the law in 1968. Thereabout 1968 passage of the Fair Housing Act. The third floor is called Changing America from 1968 and beyond. It talks about the movement. Let's see, so there's several sections there. I'm seeing a section on cities and suburbs, a section on marches for civil rights. We go to the fourth floor. The fourth floor talks about, let's see, hold on. The fourth floor, we see
United
it's
States.
called community galleries, and it talks about the participation of black people in sports, in the military, and above that, we see the culture gallery, which has exhibits showing the participation of black people in visual arts, in music, in theater, and in other forms of cultural expressions. So I'd say that that very top floor is devoted to black cultural productions. This museum does not paint a picture of gloom and doom. It shows that slavery was where America started, but it also makes it clear that that is not where America ended up. So to me, there's no need to remove the references to slavery. In my view, I don't think the museum I just talked about does a good enough job anyway of discussing African American history. So if the references to slavery are removed, it'll be the wing arm of the United States government, which is represented by the Republican government officials we have, are anti-black and authoritarian, and they want to make the best use of their time so that they can take us back to a period when black people were even more marginalized than we are now. That's it.
Somebody's pulling the strings. Remember how he which leads me to reach the, if not conclusion, the strong suspicion that Donald J. Trump has never set foot in that museum. The president is, Mr. President, have you ever entered the Museum of African American History and the Smithsonian? Then how do you reach the conclusion that you do, that there's nothing uplifting, that it's all to us, hurricane? No idea whatsoever. And you know what? If my suspicions are correct, and this is going to almost sound conspiratorial, and you guys can check me on this if you disagree. Come up to the stage and tell me I've fallen into a rabbit hole here. That this goes much deeper than just Donald Trump. He's representative of a machine, a political machine that is in full gear, and when he leaves office, that machine continues. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, let me just respond quickly. So, no, wrong. You're right. There is a long-term plan to roll back the civil rights gains that our country has made since 1954. The plan has several moving parts. One of those parts is a transformation of the federal judiciary, so that legal challenges to the civil rights laws that we have relied on for a long time are successful when they reach the Supreme Court. I would say that the federal judiciary piece is well nigh complete. Right now, the Supreme Court has a solid conservative majority, 6-3. And in the next few years, I expect Thomas and Alito to step down so that Trump can appoint their successors. Sotomayor is old, and I don't know what's going to happen to her in the next few years, but it's quite possible that Trump may have the opportunity to appoint her successor as well. So if he does that, we will have a Supreme Court with 7 conservative justices and only 2 liberal justices. So as far as I'm concerned, the Supreme Court is going to remain under right-wing control for at least 20 more years. That's just what it is. I don't know what else to tell you.
To that point, Hurricane, I just want to point out that with their really biased, and that's fine. But they're putting people on, interviewing people to promote their point of view, and which they couldn't do, so they feel unencumbered by the constraints they had when they were working for news organizations. And he had as his guest, and by the way, this is the beauty of what we do here and what Moran is doing. He didn't have a time constraint. I have time constraints, but he didn't have a time constraint in this interview. And unlike the interviews you see, maybe even those that he conducted when he was on television, where there's somebody whispering in his ear, wrap it up, ask him this, cut him off, this kind of thing. He lets his, as I just did with you, he lets his guests speak without interruption. And he has a conservative judge as his guest today. And this is what I find very interesting. This conservative judge, I guess he's retired. And I'm supposed to put their political ideology aside and rule on the constitutionality of the cases that come before them. And he finds it as a conservative, and I guess he's a strict constitutionalist conservative, appalling that this Supreme Court is not. We should not be having the discussion that we're having, whether the president is going to appoint a conservative or a moderate or a liberal to the bench in order to push through an agenda. It's not a political entity. It's not supposed to be a political entity, the Supreme Court. He is just appalled. And coming from him, and then hearing you echoing what he just said is very interesting.
Oh, just 2 more things quick, because I know other people want to speak. The other thing that Donald Trump has done so far is expanded the power of the executive branch by sending to the Supreme Court cases that would allow the Supreme Court to give the executive branch more authority. He did that with the case concerning universal injunctions. He also did that with the case concerning immunity from criminal prosecution. The third piece is making it more difficult for the American public to access the truth about America's past and present. In order to do that, one has to control what the Smithsonian museums show. The purpose of the Smithsonian museums, if you go to the Smithsonian website, is to increase and diffuse knowledge. Will be able, if it is successful, to miseducate the American public. So that's the other piece, controlling public education to the extent possible. Doing so by changing the Department of Education's focus, and also by changing what the Smithsonian Museum is able to show the public. So this is part of the long-term plan. And unfortunately, Gary, I'm going to close by saying we're responsible for this. Donald Trump is here because a long time ago, Americans laid a foundation strong enough to support his ascent. And so we're going to have to fight really, really hard if we want this country to move in a different direction. And fighting hard is going to require us to look inward and be honest about what we see. I'm done.
Thank you, Hurricane. We went we expanded the discussion. We didn't go astray with Hurricane, and also with Your Honor, because really what we're talking about is an expansion of the executive branch. I've never heard of a president trying to direct. And by the way, it's not just the Smithsonian. If you recall the words that he used in his True Social post, it was museums all across America, but specifically the Smithsonian he's looking at. But you gotta believe that if he's successful there, they're gonna move on to any other museum that accepts any kind of largesse from the federal government. Sort of like what they did with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with regard to NPR and PBS.
Gary, you forgot those posts on Truth Social are called truths.
I know, isn't that weird? Thank you, Hurricane. Does this mean you're ready to go, Scott?
I'm ready to go.
Go ahead, my brother.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta get on Truth Social. That's hilarious. Well, of course, I mean, the answer to this is no. Of course, these things should not be removed. It's very interesting when Trump toured the museum, and I don't know if somebody ever mentioned this, but when he toured it in 2017, he had a very, very different take.
He did tour it. Okay, well, Gary stands corrected. Did he go to the African American Museum?
This was when he visited the National Museum of African American History and Culture in 2017. He had a different opinion about the discussion of slavery in the museum. This is from ABC News. In his remarks that day, he praised Bunch, the current Secretary of the Smithsonian, who was then the founding director of the National Museum of American History and Culture, African American History and Culture. Trump referred to the museum as incredible, done with love, and he praised abolitionists figures Sojourner Truth, Terry Tubman, and Frederick Douglass. He even recounted a story he'd learned about a runaway slave. This is amazing. He called the tour of the museum a meaningful reminder of what has changed. Yeah, that would be interesting. And then he would say, "You're very nasty. Gary's very nasty. He's fake news. He's fake news up at Fox in New York. They don't even love me anymore. Fake news. We can only trust Newsmax, okay?" Sanitized history, right? I mean, we want, and slavery is America's original sin, right? This is part of the fabric of our founding, and it's not to say that we haven't made progress. It's not to say that things have not changed. It's not to say that we aren't, that we haven't made huge strides to be a successful, thriving, who stands in a religious tradition as part of, the people of the book. The Bible, it's got terrible texts in it, right? I mean, I was just thinking about that. Can you imagine if the president was Pope and he would order the cardinals to go through the Bible and remove any negative references to anything that is referred to in the Bible, because it's very positive, and you can't show any of the negatives. That would be a good analogy, I think. I don't like Leviticus talking about women's periods, and you can't wear two kinds of fabrics. No, get rid of the Bible. great again.
Let's just say now and call me Rock Balboa.
Yeah, no, I mean,
live in
we
Charleston,
don't
South
just like
Carolina.
excise books of the Bible. We don't excise, it's part of a tradition, and we relate
Well,
to
sorry,
the tradition.
Todd, I was
And of
very
course,
upset.
we relate to those texts
Speak
of
of
terror
prayer.
in certain ways as our consciousness morally and spiritually and psychologically evolves. But I mean, what does it serve? And here's the interesting about this. It used to be my conservative friends that used to make this argument. It's my conservative friends who said that we can't, in the interest of political correctness, sanitize the historical record, get rid of every offensive term, and get rid of everything. And now these things, it's interesting how things change, right? You just wait around long enough.
Scott, as he puts back up statute.
Right, exactly. The irony is, this is unreal. So, thank you, Gary.
Our president, how often does he go into museums in general, right? And we often know that like history is written and rewritten by the winners. That's we have that phrase because it's the truth. When you asked who is really pulling the strings, I agree with you because I don't think, regardless of what you might or I might think of him, I don't think this is something that's actually on his personal radar. Let me say it that way, right? I do believe that there are people behind him, like Steve Bannon, Miller, that are really trying to plan for the post-Trump presidency for America, and I think a lot of this is planning for after Trump. What are our policies going to be? Who are we going to try to get elected? All of these things are for after Trump. And I agree with Your Honor. Like, this is just an example, right? I agree with Your Honor because at some point, if everyone, just says, what can we do about it, then nothing's ever going to get done. To the previous speaker's comments about look at what's happening with the Supreme Court, like he's taking all of these things to the Supreme Court to set precedents for future arguments. If it were not trying to derail the topic, but if it were me, the Dems need to stop trying to play by the rules when there are no rules anymore. And we're seeing this because we're literally seeing the military policing on the streets of the capital. The capital of the country has the military policing citizens, of course, in conjunction with federal agencies. Because I think if the Dems can get someone in that seat, they need to think about restructuring the Supreme Court, even if it means adding numbers, and be willing to do something that says we are willing to fight back. I'm not from California. I am following Gavin Newsom because it seems like he's willing to punch back, not just argue back, not have these Aristotelian conversations about what we're going to do, but if someone punches you in the face, I'm from New York City, someone punches you in the face, you punch them in the face back. And that's the only way we're going to change this. Because trying to rewrite history is easy if everyone working memory of 9/11. They hear about 9/11, but that's their parents' story. They hear that does not impact them emotionally or even politically. Something needs to be done about this. And the Smithsonian was, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it was actually established by Congress, right? Pushing back, even if it means not taking federal funding if they're going to be controlled by the federal government. It's almost giving him an out. But if in fact he's on the record as being embracive of the African American Museum specifically, and then today he wants removal from the Smithsonian the very references that are part of the charge of the African American Museum General Society. But I think we are. I think we are correct in, now when I say we, I'm speaking for me and Scott and you and, you know, many of the people, but maybe not everybody. And I'm happy to hear, you know, a different point of view. But I think just the fact that we're just discussing this, exploring it, we're ahead of the curve because we don't see this explored elsewhere. And if we do, I need to know about it because I'm not seeing it. And as you know, I do a lot of reading, both off the job and on the job. And I'm not really seeing this particular angle of what's going on discussed. Maybe others are doing it, but I haven't seen it. Thank you, Daryl. Meryl.
Well, I think you know, I've been on to Trump for a long time. I have not liked Trump for a long time. The first Trump term was the goal was to have a lawless presidency. That's where Bill Barr came in, a lawless presidency. Well, he's achieved that. He achieved that. Now it is to be the most powerful, to be a dictator, to be, and it is designed to dumb us down. You take away our ability to learn history, we become dumber. If you take away our ability to have empathy, that it's so much easier for him to come and tell us to do anything, something that's racist, something that's anti-Semitic, something that is anti-anything. He took the concentration camps, some of the concentration camps, and they made them into museums so that you could go and you could see the most atrocious things that were done, the most inhuman things that were done, because they don't want you to forget something that was the biggest, most horrible thing that their nation did, that happened in their country. And that's not going to happen here. We have had book bannings since Trump became president. We banned books, and you can't read books by black. But the biggest thing I feel about is that it is so much easier if you dumb everybody down, if you take everything away from them that they can learn, and learn something that's oppositional to what you want them to learn. This is so much easier. And Trump, and by the way, I'll probably, Anson's not here anymore, so maybe I can say this and he's not going to get mad at me. Trump is a racist, and I don't think we should pretend that he's not. I don't think we should pretend about what he and his father was in the Ku Klux Klan. I don't think we should pretend that what he and his father did regarding rentals and the federal government coming after them twice. I don't think we should forget that. I don't think we should forget. I don't think we should forget who he tried to appeal to. The voters that he tried to appeal to when he came to them and he talked and said, bring it out in the open. Bring all your prejudices out in the open. He did that. And he opened up something where people used to sit around in the bar at night or sit around at their table at night. They came out now. And I think that I have to keep going back to what Aram said and what Scott is saying, you're saying. And I do think it is all about taking away the ability to learn something that's happened in our history, something that was horrible and that we should feel shame about. We should feel bad. And it teaches our children empathy. Just like you can read Anne Frank to your children, read the children's version of it, and they will feel bad. They will feel an empathy about Jewish people and about what can be done. And that's what we need to do. We should never. You talked about the 4 little girls that were killed in that church. Do you know nobody went and tried to prosecute the people that did that? Not until, I think, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. there was a white Democrat who, a lawyer who said, we need to do this, and went after them, decided to prosecute them. This is all I can say is this is a presidency that is designed to become a dictatorship. It is designed to make us, we're not going to get good press anymore. We'll get leaks. We're not going to be able to have really good investigative reporting because he's trying to smother that. We can't have television stations that are going to report named after treasonists, ships that were named after Black heroes. We're having, again, we are rewriting history. Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. Yeah, I know the movement to, it's interesting, the movement to remove the Confederate statues was really opposed by the MAGA folks because it's part of American history, and whether you agree or disagree with what those Confederate figures did, it's part of our history, and we cannot ignore our history and don't remove them. They were significant figures in U.S. history, and so you should not be taking them down. And these are the same people who are saying remove references to slavery while putting those, reassembling and re-erecting those very statues that had been removed correctly or incorrectly in the first place. So there's a definite hypocrisy there, Meryl.
Preserve them. Give them a museum. Put them in a museum, and people can go and see them just like you can go. Should have been able to go to the Smithsonian and learn history. I have no problem with them being preserved. I have a problem with them being history being rewritten about them. I have a problem with you taking military bases or places that were named after people that weren't treasonous and now renaming them again, going back. Those are the things. Revere them in a museum where people can go and they can revere them, they can see them, they can learn about them. Thank you.
Or learn not to revere them. But right. Thank you, Meryl. But it's just so interesting, the hypocrisy there. David, and by the way, we are now at the 6:02 Eastern Time. We will no longer be inviting folks onto the stage, but we are officially into extra time, so everyone on the stage, time permitting, will get the opportunity to speak. David.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a slight correction as to what you said. They didn't say history, they said heritage. Right? That's what they were doing as part of their heritage, which was an awkward thing to me. You know, to hear people say that the Confederate statue
$1 billion
heritage.
trillion. All his employees are
You want to run around with the flag flags in your car and do all that kind of stuff. That you can do that, but nobody's getting rid of these statues or just putting them in the museum or putting them in the context of history. You know, that was something I thought was the perfect thing to do. That's where it needs to be. Maybe there's a few people that wanted to erase them all together, but most people, I think, understood that they should be in the museum. So in that regard, that's where they should be at, right? So we can look at that from history. But on to, sort of a bigger topic here. I think it's easy. Everybody's going to say no, right? But I have to say this. Look, I was raised in a household where my parents always told me that, you could not depend on the school system. You could not depend on the government or any
cool pothole collisions. I mean,
tell you all of your history. So they were always.
Is that how you found me? I mean, keywords with regards to Bitcoin, etc. Was it a Clubhouse video? Probably
my
was.
history as an
Was
African American, and then the history.
It's true. A lot of people want to peg
kingdoms and empires and
crypto to gold
across Africa and all those areas.
I know Peter Schiff has a project like that.
Where most slaves came from.
I'm about to troll this room and do a southern accent
But they were always
and pretend my name is Anon.
This is a bad thing.
See how people respond to me with southern accent.
A lot of black families in America.
Hi, Gary.
Be prepared to know you're not going to get everything.
My name is Anon. You can call me Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, but David, that's great. Let's just say that the entire black community has been organically educated. It's not that community that needs to learn. There are other communities that need to know about these things, obviously.
Yes, there are other community. Yeah, I get that aspect of the other community. But just from the standpoint, like, I'm not shocked at the different attempts of people to try to remove things or try to switch the Smithsonian. I was even looking at the Museum of African Diaspora in San Francisco to see how much money it was getting from the government, right, versus how much it was getting privately, and how much you need to fill that up, right, for other people to want to go there.
So should I do? I'm going to defend Trump with my Southern accent, but what would be funny is also to pretend to be like a deranged, liberal,
really be able to address these things.
unhinged,
My mother,
deranged,
who was an educator,
like do a
K-12
TDS
at the university
skit.
level, in her early days of a K-12 educated,
I'm absolutely
she called in California to make sure that they corrected the way in which
This
we
is
talked
an
about
attack
Abraham
on our
Lincoln,
freedoms as
yes,
the museum
going
going public.
Proclamation, but she wanted to make sure that people knew that he didn't intend to do it in the South, right? That you needed to know the whole truth, of how that came about, right? And to do that. And they fought for things like, even in museums, they fought against having Egypt being placed in a different area than the rest of Africa, right? So they were constantly fighting in these areas to make sure that history and different aspects of history were being told in the way in which they truly were. So I think it just takes a broader number of people to get out there to make sure and educate, and especially in a country at this point where our government is very focused on individual states' rights, right? We have an opportunity in California, which may be easier than some people in other states aren't going to have that opportunity, but we do have an opportunity in some of these states to really push to make sure that we enshrine in our own states the ability for people to have access to different things that they need to do to learn about history. In the case of this president, we're going to have to ride this out, okay? There really isn't much to do. We're going to have to ride it out, right? But what we can do is we can use our collective selves to push, whether it's to push at the president, since it's Stephen Miller and some other people speaking into his ear, and he's all of a sudden changed the tune from where he was in the first term, all those different things, whether he really cared or not. That's about the best thing that we can do at this moment. Like, that's going to be our collective energy is going to be able to do that. And also, what I want to say to other people who need to learn, right? You're going to look. We still have the internet. We still have the ability to teach other people themselves, because you might have to rely on that too, right? In the old days, I just want to use this bit of history. In the old days, the Chicago Defender, right, which was a African American newspaper from Chicago. They used to
I know the Chicago Defender.
Yeah, they used to sneak that into the South, right, for people to be able to read back in the day, because they weren't supposed to be reading, right? So they used to go down and sneak that in there for people to get to be educated on the subject matter. So in terms of what's going on with Smithsonian, I just think it takes a collective group of people to be able to fight that particular issue. And at the same time, there's some aspects of this which have got to ride out a few more years, and then we'll be able to fully deal with it, rest with as much as we can afterwards. So that's what I'm going to say. But this is not unexpected.
Thank you, David. And we will now go. And by the way, I don't know whether writing it out really works, given that I believe that there's a long-term plan, but maybe you'll get lucky. Glenn Alley.
Hey, thank you for letting me come up. I will say that one of the things where I think why Trump is doing what he's doing with the Smithsonian and being a little bit more on point with the racism this time around is because you really don't need black people anymore. He doesn't need to feign like he's not racist. He can let that just go. So, like, a lot of the stuff before, I used to tell people all the time, he's doing things that are more so a show to make it seem like he cares about black people. Like, pardoning Jack Johnson, giving a pardon to Kodak Black, just random little things that are, that are more symbolic than actual equality is what Trump was doing the first time. So now that he's in there a second time, he knows he can't get elected for a third term. He doesn't have to do that anymore. He can just let go and go for like that base that he already knew that he had. So like I think that's one thing that's going on. And I know somebody like mentioned earlier about, kind of like the ties behind it, who's pulling the strings and stuff. When you talk about things like the Confederate statues and whatnot, if you go and look at them, a lot of them aren't traced straight back to the Confederacy. A lot of them were built by, organizations like the Daughters of the Confederacy or like the Children of the Confederacy. A lot of them came about in around 1915 to, I think I want to say it's from around 1890 to 1920 is when a lot of them got put up. And that was when there was also a giant boom in the Ku Klux Klan, which was also tied in with that. So there's a lot of like built-in systemic racism that has to do with like the statues and whatnot. And yeah, like Trump is just like, he's just going back to his most base natural instincts right now, because he doesn't have to appeal to us anymore. And like, there's no more racists to win. That's what I think, honestly. That's my little piece.
Thank you, Glenn. David. And Stan, we're not going to get to you. You came up too late. Sorry, pal. Go ahead and write what you wanted to say in the chat above. David.
How's everybody doing?
All is well. It ends well. So we'll see how the show ends.
Trump has a war room of people.
I'm sure you have something very insightful, but we can't hear a word you're saying. I'll give you an opportunity to fix that and come back to you, David. Chris.
Hey, Gary. Today I'm ready. Okay, David. Hey, David.
I just muted him because he's not making the trip. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, okay. See the title, and it's not your fault about the title being bad. It's the fact that we shouldn't even have to have that conversation. And I'll keep putting it in the chat, and I'll keep saying it on this stage. This is just another one of those good old diversions that get us have already broken down. Whoever is pulling his strings. 1 year he says this, he gets back elected, he comes back, he's saying new things. The new things aren't old things from him. This is the same man that took out a whole page article on the Central 5 boys who he said deserved life in prison and all the bad things that happened to them over a lie. So it's not far-fetched that he would say these things or do these type of things. But it is very obvious that he wants us to get off the main topic, which is who and why are you in the Epstein files? Who else is in those Epstein files? Who's else in charge of more important things than Donald Trump that is in those Epstein files and would be exposed if they came out? Again, I don't want to move this conversation away from this topic, but I want to continue to regurgitate and re-spit out every single chance I can when we have these topics. That he's just trying to further move the ball down the field. Yes, this is negative. This is extremely bad. I go to the African American Museum at least once a year, and it's a great place to be. It's a great place to learn. It's a great place to understand the dynamics of what slavery not only did to a culture of peoples, or an ethnic group of peoples, and that would be black people, and actually what it did culturally to white people. The urge and the ability to give them, and I speak of them as Caucasian people, the urge and the ability to give them the sense of well-being and power that was held over black people's head for 400 years. It is something that all white people need to see. Even if they have a racist bone in their body and they still don't walk out of there with a changed mind, it should be something we all find ourselves needing to learn about. And it's just bigger than slavery. It's about learning black culture as a whole. I think if we spoke more as a people and less, dialogue and analysis, and actually have real conversations, we'll realize we're way closer than you expect. We have the same issues. We have the same crazy uncles. We have the same crazy mother, or the nice sweet mother, or we have the dad that was there or was not there. These things aren't one side or the other. That is just who we are as a people. And what he wants to further do is push us away from realizing that we are really closer than what people think. He wants it to be an authoritarian, so he also needs it to look like we're better than you and you. This isn't just about black people. This happened to Hispanic people. He did the same with Hispanics. They're all criminals. They're all rapists. it's all about making the purity of the white skin again. And I hate that it's that way, because when it comes down to it, and this might be I want to say controversial, because it's really just facts. White people voted this in. Maybe they didn't see it coming down this hard or down the line or this pathway, but some of us did, and it did not take a race to see it. It was because some of the things he priorly did actually shown, hey, he could take it too far, and it won't be good for the country, not just the race, but the country. Hey, Marshall, could you go on mute, please? Thank you.
Thank
So,
you, Chris.
I was going to say, and I'm going to lay in here. I was going to say, and I was going to lay in here. My biggest thing isn't, hey, he's taking out more history out of museums, which he is. And I agree with Scott, or it was your honor, I believe. And we as the people, will have to find our back when we get to Congress getting back in office. And to me, that should be what we pay attention to, because he's just going to try to get us off of it while doing the crazy. Go for it, Gary.
Okay, Odianware, you're not a moderator. So, it's not for you to judge how the room is.
I'm going to say what I'm going to say and get off this stage.
Okay.
I was stating that he is protecting pedophiles. I've never said Donald Trump was. We know that we don't have anybody else in jail other than the dead Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Those weren't the people that were paying for him. Because he could have released the files he currently has, and we could have figured out who the pedophiles were.
So he could have released the files.
Hey, Marshall, you know what? Hey, Gary, thank you. Gary, thank you for letting me speak, Gary. Thank you for letting me speak, Gary. I hate to be interrupted by Marshall when I'm making a good point, because he does that when you make good points in this space. And I don't want to go back and forth with him. Marshall, can I please say my goodbyes to Gary? This is weird. 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 Now you're fighting against it. Now you're fighting against it. Now you're fighting against it. Gary, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Accusation.
Until we get the files, Marshall, the pedo conversation is going to get live. Until we get the files with all detailed files in it, we're going to keep live in the pedo on Donald Trump for protecting him. He has the ability to release it, and he renewed it.
It's not convincing.
And that's what I just said. So fine. So be quiet and let me finish. Because you're weird. Be quiet and let me finish. Gary, thank you. Gary, thank you for the time, as always. And I would like to move on by saying we just need to keep our eye on the ball, because when we don't keep our eye on the ball, people like Marshall will keep trying to push us away from it. So we don't find out what's going on, because we're going to find out eventually that the people are
I can't understand, and probably nobody else can, or neither of you are saying.
While I have the floor. You should be quiet while I have the floor.
Okay.
I'm getting off the stage.
Okay, Chris, thank you.
Okay, like I said,
I can't understand, and I'm sure
does that
if I
every time
can't.
I get to talk, Gary.
Okay.
It's more than less than I get up to talk. He steps on my conversation as if I said something directly to him. That's weird. Take your turn when you get it, Marshall. You would be next. You're the next moderator on stage. You've been gone the whole time. Now, the moment you get on stage, you want to speak. Be quiet.
I think that if Chris and Marshall have to work this out.
I don't want to work this out with Marshall. I don't know him.
A fucking punk little bitch.
I just understand now when I get to getting too close to what he does not like, he gets to interrupt me and throw me completely off. And since you allow him on your stage,
Gary, this is A now. I'm new to Clubhouse.
Legal criminal accusation. If you are going to accuse somebody of a legal crime,
I never said he was a pedophile. I never said he was a pedophile. I never said. No, I said he did not give the documentation, which would. I said he did not give the documentation, which would expose the pedophile.
Let me clear up the confusion, because I think there's a discussion here based on something that wasn't said, and then we're going to move on, because we're not talking about Epstein today.
I wasn't trying to.
I don't know whether you were or you weren't, and I'm not making any accusations, but I want to clear up what it just occurred so we can get back on track. So Chris, and he stated this in text before he came up to speak in the chat, that he believes that the president is raising all these various issues, including in the context of today's discussion, the Smithsonian institution and to wipe out any references to slavery. Not that he isn't serious about it, but he believes, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that the timing of this is designed, as the timing of many things that are going on right now, to divert the public's attention away from the Epstein files. Is that a correct summation of your point?